January 13th, 2012. A floating city glides through the Mediterranean darkness. 4,229 souls aboard. 13 decks rising 17 stories above the waterline. 4 swimming pools. A casino, the largest spa ever installed on a cruise ship. At 952 feet long, the Costa Concordia stretches nearly the length of 3 football fields, 70 feet longer than the Titanic. She cost €450 million to build. Tonight, she's worth nothing. At 9:45 p.m., while passengers sip wine in the grand dining room, while the orchestra plays Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On from the Titanic soundtrack, while children sleep in their cabins dreaming of the Mediterranean ports ahead, a 53-meter gash tears through the ship's hull. That's 174 feet of steel ripped open like tissue paper. The lights go out, the ship begins to tilt, and within hours, 32 people will be dead. Drowned in flooding corridors, sucked into whirlpools of rushing seawater, trapped in elevators that became steel coffins, a 5-year-old girl and her father, an elderly couple from Minnesota on the trip of a lifetime, a Filipino waiter who gave away his life jacket to save a stranger. This isn't the story of a mechanical failure. It isn't the story of an unforeseen disaster striking without warning. This is the story of one man's decision to sail a 114,000-ton cruise ship within 500 feet of a rocky coastline to show off. This is the story of Captain Francesco Schettino, a man who abandoned his ship while hundreds of passengers remained trapped aboard. A man who told the Italian Coast Guard he couldn't return to help because it's dark. Welcome inside the wreck of the Costa Concordia, where vanity killed 32 people and cowardice became a crime. Meta di Sorrento, a small town on the Sorrentine Peninsula, south of Naples. The kind of place where the sea isn't just a view, it's a family business. Generations of fishermen, ferry captains, merchant mariners, salt water in the bloodline. Francesco Schettino is born here on November 14th, 1960. His family has worked these waters for as long as anyone can remember. The path is already laid out for him. He enrolls at the Nino Bixio Nautical Institute in nearby Piano di Sorrento, one of Italy's most respected maritime academies. Graduates, joins the ferry company Tirrenia, spends years learning the craft, navigation, ship handling, the 1,000 small decisions that separate competent captains from dangerous ones. By all accounts, he's good at his job, reliable, professional, the kind of officer you want on your bridge. In April 2002, at age 41, Schettino joins Costa Concordia, a subsidiary of the American cruise giant Carnival Corporation. He starts as a security officer, works his way up to staff captain, second in command, learns the cruise industry, the passengers, the spectacle, the business of turning a ship into a floating resort. Then comes 2006. Costa Concordia is launching a new flagship, the Costa Concordia, largest cruise ship ever built in Italy. €450 million of steel and luxury. And they need a captain. Schettino gets the job. He's 45 years old, commanding a vessel longer than 3 football fields, responsible for thousands of passengers every voyage. It's the pinnacle of a maritime career. And almost immediately, a pattern emerges. The sail-by salutes begin. Close passes along the Italian coastline, Sorrento, Capri, Procida. The ship glides near enough for passengers to photograph the cliffs, for people on shore to wave at the massive vessel. It's showmanship, it's marketing, and it's dangerous. Costa knows about these maneuvers. They're semi-sanctioned. Good for publicity. The company advertises them in onboard newsletters. But the margin for error is razor thin. One miscalculation, one unexpected current, one moment of inattention. Disaster. In November 2008, disaster nearly arrives. The Concordia is docked in Palermo, Sicily. High winds push her against the pier. The bow is damaged. No injuries, but a warning. Schettino is in command. In 2010, another incident. Schettino is now captain of the Costa Atlantica. Entering the German port of Warnemünde, allegedly at excessive speed, he damages another Carnival ship, the Aidablu. The company later claims no significant harm occurred, but the pattern is there. Risk-taking, overconfidence, close calls that keep getting closer. And then there's the omen. September 2nd, 2005. The Costa Concordia's christening ceremony at the Sestri Ponente shipyard in Genoa. Supermodel Eva Herzigova swings the champagne bottle against the hull. It doesn't break. She swings again. This time it shatters. But sailors are superstitious people. A bottle that doesn't break on the first try means bad luck. Workers whisper about it for years. By January 2012, Francesco Schettino is 51 years old, 6 years commanding the Concordia. Dozens of successful voyages, dozens of close passes along scenic coastlines. Nothing has gone wrong. Nothing serious anyway. He's about to attempt another sail-by salute, this time at Giglio Island. This time, the rocks are waiting. The Fincantieri shipyard at Sestri Ponente, Genoa. June 30th, 2006, a gleaming white vessel slides into the Mediterranean for the first time. Hull number 6122, the Costa Concordia. She is, at this moment, the largest cruise ship ever constructed in Italy. 114,137 gross tons. 290 meters from bow to stern. That's 952 feet. Nearly the length of 3 football fields, 70 feet longer than the Titanic. Her beam stretches 35.5 meters wide. She draws 8.2 meters of water. 17 decks rise above the waterline, a floating skyscraper turned on its side. The engineering is staggering. 6 Wärtsilä diesel engines generate enough power to light a small city. Diesel-electric propulsion drives her through the water at speeds up to 23 knots. Her systems are state-of-the-art, redundant, fail-safed, built to the highest maritime safety standards of 2006. But the Costa Concordia isn't just an engineering achievement. She's a fantasy. 4 swimming pools, 13 bars and restaurants, a casino where passengers lose money in 5 currencies, a theatre with nightly entertainment, a shopping promenade lined with designer boutiques, and the crown jewel, the Samsara Spa, the largest wellness centre ever installed on a cruise ship, thalassotherapy pools, treatment rooms with ocean views, the promise of luxury so complete you forget you're floating on thousands of tons of steel above the dark Mediterranean. The name itself is aspirational. Concordia, Latin for harmony, unity, peace among European nations. The ship is meant to embody cooperation, connection, the European dream made manifest in chrome and glass and Italian craftsmanship. She cost 450 million euros to build. That's approximately $570 million in 2006 dollars. A floating investment that must fill 3,780 passenger berths week after week, year after year, to justify her existence. And she does. From her maiden voyage onward, the Concordia prints money. Tourists flock to experience her. The reviews glow. Costa Concordia has a flagship to be proud of. January 13th, 2012, Civitavecchia, Italy, the port that serves Rome. The Costa Concordia prepares for departure, a 7-day Mediterranean cruise. Ports of call include Savona, Marseille, Barcelona, Palma de Mallorca, Cagliari, Palermo. Sun-drenched destinations, Instagram photos waiting to happen, the trip of a lifetime for many aboard. By 7:18 p.m., the ship is loaded and ready. 3,206 passengers from over 60 countries, Germans, French, Italians, Americans, Koreans, families, retirees, honeymooners. Ian and Janice Donoff from somewhere in America. They've just gotten married. This cruise is their honeymoon. They're thinking about the week ahead, the ports they'll visit, the memories they'll make. Nate and Carrie Lukes from Alaska. They've brought their 4 daughters. A family adventure on the Mediterranean. The girls are excited. The parents are relaxed. Everyone is safe. Gerald and Barbara Heil from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Elderly, devout Catholics, active in their church community. They've told friends, this is the trip of a lifetime. They're not wrong. It will be the last trip of their lives. And 5-year-old Diana Arlotti, traveling with her father William. She's the youngest passenger aboard. Brown hair, bright eyes, a little girl who doesn't know that in less than 12 hours she'll become the face of a tragedy. The youngest victim of a disaster that hasn't happened yet. Below decks, 1,023 crew members prepare for the voyage. They come from 40 countries. The officers are Italian. The workers are international. 296 Filipinos, 202 Indians, 170 Indonesians. Waiters, housekeepers, cooks, entertainers, engineers. The invisible army that makes the luxury possible. Russell Rebello is among them. 33 years old. From India. Works as a waiter. He's been at sea for years, sending money home to his family. Just another voyage. Just another week of serving passengers in the dining room, clearing plates, earning his paycheck. Giuseppe Girolamo, 30 years old. A musician in the ship's orchestra. Italian. Young. Talented. He plays for passengers in the evenings while they sip cocktails and watch the sunset. Neither man knows this is their last voyage. Neither man knows they'll become heroes. Neither man knows they won't survive. At 7:18 p.m., the Costa Concordia pulls away from Civitavecchia. The lights of Rome fade behind her. Passengers explore the ship, find their cabins, marvel at the amenities. In the grand dining room, preparations begin for the first formal dinner of the cruise. The orchestra plays, the wine flows. Outside, the Mediterranean night is calm, clear, perfect sailing weather. In approximately 2.5 hours, this ship will strike a rock, and everything will change. The bridge of the Costa Concordia, 9:30 p.m. Captain Francesco Schettino takes personal command for the approach to Giglio Island. This is his show, his moment, the sail-by salute he's been planning. Around him stands the bridge team. First Officer Ciro Ambrosio, Third Officer Silvia Coronica, and at the helm, Indonesian sailor Jacob Rusli Bin, a capable seaman. But there's a problem with Bin that will matter enormously in the next 15 minutes. His grasp of Italian is limited. His English isn't much better. And the ship's official working language recently changed from English to Italian, approved by maritime authorities without verifying whether the international crew could actually understand it. There's someone else on the bridge tonight, someone who shouldn't be there. Domnica Semorton, 26 years old, Moldovan, a dancer who worked on another Costa ship captained by Schettino weeks earlier. She's aboard as a non-paying passenger. She's also Schettino's lover. She will later admit both facts under oath. Her presence on the bridge during a complex navigational maneuver violates every protocol. But Schettino wants her there. He wants her to see this. The standard route keeps ships more than 5 miles from Giglio's coast. Schettino's planned route tonight, 0.28 nautical miles, roughly 500 meters, close enough for passengers to photograph the island, close enough for residents on shore to see the massive vessel glide past, close enough for disaster. He's not using the ship's sophisticated navigation systems. He's steering by sight, by instinct, by ego. I knew the route well, he'll later claim. The ship is traveling at approximately 16 knots, too fast for the margin of error this close to shore. 9:42 p.m. The ship approaches Lascaux, a rocky outcrop extending from Giglio's coastline. In the darkness, Schettino peers through binoculars. He sees something that changes everything. White foam, waves breaking against rocks, directly ahead. 9:43 p.m. Schettino realizes the danger. He shouts an order to the helmsman. Hard to starboard. He wants the ship to turn right, away from the rocks. The bow needs to swing clear. But the bridge erupts in confusion. Schettino orders a heading of 350 degrees. Bin doesn't understand. 340 degrees, he asks. Schettino and Ambrosio shout back, 350. The first officer appears to contradict the captain. Witnesses hear someone yell, hard to port, while others yell, hard to starboard. Third officer Coronica abandons her station to help the helmsman interpret the commands. Precious seconds evaporate. The Costa Concordia is 290 meters long. She weighs 114,000 tons. Ships this size don't turn on a dime. They respond slowly, grudgingly, momentum fighting against the rudder. Even if Bin had executed the order instantly, it might not have mattered. But he doesn't execute it instantly. He's confused. The language barrier, the shouting, the chaos. 13 seconds of delay. An eternity. 9:45:07 p.m. The bow swings clear of the rocks. The stern does not. Lascaux tears into the port side of the hull like a can opener through aluminum. The sound is apocalyptic. A massive grinding roar that shudders through all 17 decks. Metal screaming against stone. The ship lurches. Passengers in the dining room feel it as a violent jolt. Glasses shatter. Plates slide off tables. The chandeliers sway. Below the waterline, catastrophe. A 53-meter gash, 174 feet, rips through 3 watertight compartments housing the engine room. Seawater explodes inward. Generators flood. The ship loses propulsion almost immediately. Emergency systems kick in, then flicker. The lights go out. Emergency lighting casts everything in dim red. On the bridge, alarms shriek. Warning indicators flash across every console. The damage reports start coming in. Flooding on deck 0. Engine room compromised. No propulsion. No steering. The ship is drifting. Schettino stares at the instruments. At the chaos. At the magnitude of what he's done. I've made a mess, he reportedly says. It's 9:45 p.m. The ship has been struck. 32 people will die. But not yet. Not for hours. There's still time. Time to call for help. Time to evacuate. Time to save everyone aboard. What happens in the next 73 minutes will determine who lives and who dies. And Francesco Schettino is about to make it worse. The ship is dying. Schettino knows it. The bridge crew knows it. Water is flooding the engine compartments at a rate that cannot be stopped. Power is failing. The Concordia is beginning to list, and Francesco Schettino's first instinct is to cover it up. Within minutes of impact, he's on the phone with Roberto Ferrarini, Costa Concordier's crisis coordinator on shore. The conversation isn't about passenger safety. It isn't about evacuation procedures. It's about reputation. "I have made a mess," Schettino tells Ferrarini. "What should I say to the media?" He proposes a story. "Tell the port authorities it was a blackout, an electrical failure, not a collision, not a 174-foot gash in the hull, just a temporary power problem. Nothing to panic about." Below decks, crew members fan out through the ship with exactly that message. Passengers who felt the impact, who heard the grinding metal, who watched their dinner plates slide off tilting tables. They're told everything is fine. Electrical issues, nothing serious. Please return to your cabins. In the grand dining room, the orchestra has stopped playing, but the staff keeps smiling. "Keep calm. Stay seated. We're handling it." 10:12 p.m. The phone on the bridge rings. It's the Livorno Coast Guard. Passengers have been calling Italian police on their cell phones, reporting that something is wrong. The Coast Guard wants to know what's happening. Schettino's response: "We have a blackout, and we are checking the conditions on board." A lie. He already knows the hull is breached. He already knows the engine room is flooding. He already knows this ship is in mortal danger. But he tells the Coast Guard it's just a blackout. The minutes tick by. The ship's condition worsens. With propulsion gone, the Concordia drifts on the current and wind. The rudder is stuck to starboard. Slowly, the massive vessel swings back toward Giglio Island. She's no longer moving away from danger. She's drifting toward shore. The list increases, first to port, then as the ship turns dramatically to starboard. 10:22 p.m. Schettino finally admits to the Coast Guard that they've had a failure and need tugboat assistance. Still no evacuation order. Still no Mayday distress signal. Still passengers being told to stay calm, return to their rooms, wait for instructions. Inside the ship, reality overwhelms the lies. Furniture slides across floors. Anything not bolted down begins to move. In the corridors, passengers grab handrails to stay upright. Children cry. The tilt is unmistakable now. You can feel it in your stomach, in your feet, in the growing certainty that something is terribly, terribly wrong. Some passengers ignore the crew's instructions. They find life jackets on their own. They move toward the outer decks. They trust their instincts over the reassurances. These passengers will survive because they refuse to obey. Others follow orders. They return to their cabins as instructed. They wait for guidance that never comes. Some of these passengers will drown. Half an hour before the abandon ship order, a crew member is captured on passenger video at a muster station. His words: "We have solved the problems we had. We invite everyone to return to their cabins." 30 minutes later, the ship will be listing so severely that half the lifeboats can't launch. 10:58 p.m. 73 minutes after impact, Francesco Schettino finally gives the order to abandon ship. International maritime law requires all passengers to be evacuated within 30 minutes of such an order. The Costa Concordia's evacuation will take over 6 hours, because by 10:58 p.m., the situation has deteriorated beyond any orderly response. The ship is now listing more than 20 degrees to starboard. The lifeboats on the port side, the elevated side, are functionally useless. Passengers crowd toward the starboard rail. But there aren't enough boats. There isn't enough time. There isn't enough crew guidance. The safety drill that would have shown passengers where to go. It was scheduled for tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist anymore. What follows is 6 hours of chaos, terror, and improvised survival. Passengers fighting for lifeboat seats. People climbing down the tilted hull on ropes and bedsheets. Bodies in the water. Heroes emerging from nowhere. Cowards disappearing into the night. And the captain, he's about to make one final decision. The one that will define him forever. The abandoned ship order comes at 10:58 p.m. By now, the Costa Concordia is listing more than 20 degrees to starboard, and that angle is getting worse by the minute. Picture the geometry of disaster. A ship tilted 20 degrees means corridors become slopes. 30 degrees and you're climbing walls. 40 degrees and the floor is a cliff face. The Concordia will eventually settle at 66 degrees, nearly on her side. But the passengers don't know that yet. All they know is that gravity has betrayed them. The evacuation begins in darkness. Emergency lighting casts a dim red glow through the corridors. It's not enough to see clearly. It's enough to see shapes, shadows, the outline of panic. Passengers pour out of cabins, restaurants, bars, theaters. Thousands of people converging on stairwells and muster stations simultaneously. Many have no idea where to go. The safety drill was scheduled for tomorrow. The muster station assignments are printed on cards in their cabins they can no longer safely reach. Melissa Goduti from Connecticut boarded the ship just 3 hours ago. She hasn't unpacked her bags. The boat leaned over on like a 70-degree angle, she later tells reporters. Everything just started falling. Dishes falling, trash cans falling. Then the lights went out. In the grand dining room, the scene is surreal. Minutes earlier, passengers were eating dinner. Now plates and glasses litter the floor. Tables have slid into walls. The Titanic song that was playing when the ship struck, "My Heart Will Go On," has become a grotesque prophecy. Survivors will remember that detail for the rest of their lives. The lifeboats present an impossible problem. The Concordia carries enough boats for everyone aboard. But half of them, those on the port side, are now elevated high above the water. The davits can't lower them at this angle. They're useless. Everyone must evacuate from the starboard side. But there aren't enough boats there for 4,229 people. And the boats that can launch are filling too slowly, too chaotically, with too little coordination from the crew. Nate Lukes from Alaska shields his 4 daughters with his body. The crowd surges around them. There was really a melee, he later recalls. People were jumping onto the top of the lifeboats and pushing down women and children. I felt like my daughters were going to get trampled. The comparison to Titanic isn't melodrama. It's accurate. Survivors use that word repeatedly. It was like the movie, they say. Exactly like the movie. Some lifeboats launch successfully. Passengers cram inside. 150 people where 100 should fit. The boats drop to the water, motor away from the dying ship, deliver their cargo to the shore of Giglio Island. But for every boat that launches, hundreds of passengers remain aboard. Russell Rebello works through the chaos. The 33-year-old Indian waiter isn't thinking about himself. He's thinking about the passengers. He gives away his life jacket to someone who needs it more. He helps people into lifeboats. He stays aboard, lowering boats, guiding passengers, doing the job the officers have abandoned. He will never leave this ship. Francis Serval faces an impossible choice. The French passenger has one life jacket. His wife can't swim. He gives it to her. When no space remains in the lifeboats, when the last chance for a safe exit disappears, he jumps into the freezing Mediterranean without flotation. The capsizing ship creates a vortex. He's sucked under. His wife survives. He doesn't. By midnight, the ship has rolled onto her starboard side. She's grounded on a rocky underwater ledge just outside Giglio's harbour. The hull looms above the water like a beached whale. Inside, passengers cling to railings, to furniture, to anything solid. The corridors have become vertical shafts. Stairwells have become ladders. The floor is now a wall. Emily Lau and Benji Smith, honeymooners from Boston, improvise. With no lifeboats available, they tie bedsheets and rope together. They lower themselves down the exterior hull, 11 stories, in the dark, into waiting rescue boats below. There was no instruction, Smith later says. No one was telling us what to do. The residents of Giglio Island respond before anyone asks them to. Fishing boats race toward the wreck. The church opens its doors. Islanders offer their homes, their clothes, their food to the shivering survivors arriving on their shores. A community of 1,000 permanent residents absorbs over 4,000 refugees in a single night. Father Rafael Malena, the ship's priest, is among the last to leave. He stays aboard until approximately 1:30 a.m., ministering to the terrified, helping where he can. By 4:46 a.m., the Port of Livorno's harbour master log records the evacuation as complete. But it isn't complete. Not really. Inside the wreck, people are still trapped, still alive, still waiting. And the question that will define this disaster, the question Italy will ask for years, begins to take shape. Where is the captain? Not on the bridge, not coordinating the evacuation, not with his passengers and crew. Francesco Schettino is safe, dry, on shore, while 300 people remain trapped in the darkness he created. According to investigators, Francesco Schettino leaves the Costa Concordia at approximately 11:30 p.m., less than 2 hours after impact, while hundreds of passengers remain trapped aboard, while the ship continues to sink, while people are drowning in flooding corridors. His explanation, offered later, he tripped. He fell into a lifeboat by accident. It wasn't abandonment. It was misfortune. Nobody believes him. At 12:40 a.m., the phone rings in the Livorno Coast Guard Operations Center. Captain Gregorio De Falco answers. He's been coordinating rescue efforts for hours. Helicopters are in the air. Patrol boats are circling the wreck. The situation is desperate, and the man who should be managing it is nowhere to be found. De Falco calls Schettino directly. The conversation is recorded. Within days, that recording will become the most listened to audio in Italy. Commander, this is De Falco from Livorno. Am I speaking with the captain? Good evening, Chief De Falco. Listen, Schettino. There are people trapped on board. Now you go with your lifeboat. Under the bow of the ship on the right side, there is a ladder. You climb that ladder and go on board. Go on board the ship and get back to me and tell me how many people are there. Is that clear? Schettino's response. In this moment, the boat is tipping. De Falco cuts him off. His voice rises. The professional detachment begins to crack. Listen, Schettino, perhaps you have saved yourself from the sea, but I will make you look very bad. I will make you pay for this. Get on board, damn it. The captain protests, makes excuses, says he's coordinating from the lifeboat. De Falco isn't having it. There are people coming down the ladder. Go back in the opposite direction. Get back on the ship and tell me how many people there are and what they have on board. Tell me if there are children, women, and what type of help they need. Minutes pass. Schettino still hasn't moved. DeFalco's frustration explodes. What do you want to do? To go home, Schettino? It's dark and you want to go home. The captain tries again to explain. It's dark. He can't see. The lifeboat is drifting. Every excuse sounds flimsier than the last. Then comes the line that will define this disaster. The line that will be printed on T-shirts, shared across social media, quoted in Parliament. The line that expresses everything Italy feels about the man who abandoned his passengers. Vada a bordo, cazzo. The translation varies. Get the fuck on board. Get back on board, you prick. The profanity is unmistakable. The contempt is total. DeFalco tries one final time. His voice is hoarse now, exhausted, furious. There are already bodies, Schettino. Go. The captain says he's going. He doesn't go. At least not immediately. Not meaningfully. The conversation ends with DeFalco ordering Schettino's second-in-command to return to the ship as well. Neither man provides significant assistance to the ongoing rescue. The recording leaks within days. Italy erupts. Tabloid headlines scream, "Captain Coward," "Captain Calamity," Italy's most hated man. The story dominates news coverage for weeks. A nation watches the footage of the capsized ship, listens to the audio of their captain making excuses in the dark, and feels a collective shame. A new expression enters the Italian language. Fare lo schettino. To do a schettino. It means to abandon your responsibilities, to run when others need you, to be a coward when courage is required. The phrase appears on bumper stickers, in comedy routines, in political debates. When someone shirks their duty, Italians have a new way to describe it. Meanwhile, Gregorio DeFalco becomes a national hero, the Coast Guard captain who refused to accept excuses, who demanded accountability in real time, who said what everyone was thinking, on tape, for history to hear. DeFalco will later run for political office. He'll be elected to the Italian Senate. His fame rests entirely on one phone call. But what a phone call it was. By dawn on January 14th, the scope of the disaster is becoming clear. Over 4,194 people evacuated to Giglio Island, a community of 1,000 now hosting 4 times its population. Survivors wrapped in borrowed blankets, families searching for missing relatives, children crying for parents who haven't arrived. The rescue isn't over. Search teams prepare to enter the wreck. Helicopters circle the half-submerged hull. Somewhere inside that twisted maze of flooded corridors and tilted decks, people may still be alive. Trapped, waiting. And somewhere inside, people are already dead. Drowned in the darkness, bodies floating in flooded compartments, victims of one man's ego and another man's cowardice. The search for survivors is about to begin. The search for bodies will take nearly 3 years. Dawn breaks over Giglio Island on January 14th, 2012. The Mediterranean sun rises on a scene that seems impossible. A cruise ship the size of a skyscraper lies on her side, half submerged, just meters from shore. Her hull stretches along the coastline like a beached leviathan. Portholes that once looked out on the sea now stare at the sky. Inside that twisted wreck, people may still be alive. Search teams mobilize immediately. Italian Coast Guard divers, Navy frogmen, fire department rescue units. They prepare to enter a structure that has become a death trap. flooded corridors, unstable debris, furniture and fittings transformed into obstacles. The ship has settled at a 66-degree list. Interior spaces have become vertical mazes. Darkness fills every passage. The first divers enter through broken windows, through gashes in the hull, through any opening they can find. They swim through water thick with floating debris, seat cushions, suitcases, children's toys, the detritus of interrupted lives. They find bodies almost immediately. The first confirmed fatalities are recovered from the water near the ship. More are found in accessible areas of the wreck. By the end of the first day, the count stands at 6, then 11, then 17. Each body tells a story. Life jackets that couldn't save them, broken bones from falling through tilted spaces, lungs filled with seawater. But the divers also find something else. Signs of life. January 15th, more than 24 hours after impact. Deep inside the wreck, rescue teams locate an air pocket. 3 people have survived inside it. A crew member, a young South Korean couple on their honeymoon. They've been trapped in darkness for over a day, breathing whatever air remained in their section of the ship, waiting for rescue that they couldn't know was coming. They are the last survivors pulled from the Costa Concordia, the last people to escape alive. The search continues, day after day, week after week, but large sections of the ship remain inaccessible. The structure is unstable. Every dive risks collapse. Every penetration into the flooded interior could become a rescuer's tomb. The ship itself keeps moving. Currents shift her position on the underwater ledge. She settles deeper. Groans and creaks echo through the hull as metal strains against rock. Multiple times, operations must be suspended when the wreck shifts unexpectedly. The sea floor drops away beneath her to a depth of 70 meters. If she slides off the ledge, she takes everyone inside with her. By the end of January, the body count reaches 17. But the passenger manifest says 30 people remain unaccounted for. Families wait in agony. They've come to Giglio from around the world. Germans, Italians, French, Americans, Indians. They sit in hotels and community centers, waiting for news, hoping for miracles, dreading confirmation. Gerald and Barbara Heil from Minnesota, the devout couple on the trip of a lifetime. Their bodies aren't identified until April, weeks after recovery. They're found together. They died together. The trip of a lifetime became exactly that. Giuseppe Girolamo, the 30-year-old Italian musician. He was ordered to abandon ship, but stayed to help passengers. His father Giovanni will later say, Schettino deserves 32 life sentences. Tomas Alberto Costilla Mendoza, Peruvian cleaning supervisor. He helped passengers into a lifeboat, then fell into the freezing water himself. Died of hypothermia while the people he saved motored to shore. April 2012. A mini-submarine explores previously unsearched areas. The lifeboat deck, internal stairwells, sections too dangerous for human divers. The robot's cameras reveal what the rescuers feared. 8 more bodies, clustered near elevator shafts. It appears some victims were sucked into the elevators as the ship flooded, or became trapped inside when the power failed. The elevators that were supposed to be escape routes became sealed coffins. The count rises to 25, then higher, but 2 people remain missing. Maria Grazia Treccarici, Italian, a passenger. Her daughter Stefania has been searching since the night of the disaster, pleading with authorities, demanding answers. Where is her mother? Russell Rebello, Indian, the waiter who gave away his life jacket. who stayed aboard to lower the final lifeboats, whose family in India waits for news that doesn't come. September 2013. Engineers finally rotate the wreck upright in a massive salvage operation. For the first time, the crushed starboard side is visible. Amid the twisted metal, the compressed debris, the destruction, more remains. Maria Grazia Treccarici is found near Deck 3. In an area where dishes were washed, she never made it out of the ship's interior. She was 50 years old. Her body has been trapped in the wreck for 20 months. Her daughter finally has an answer. It isn't the answer she wanted. But Russell Rebello remains missing. His family continues waiting. November 3rd, 2014. Nearly 3 years after the disaster, workers preparing the wreck for final scrapping make a discovery. Human remains, identified through DNA, Russell Rebello, the hero who gave his life jacket to a stranger, the waiter who stayed when the captain fled, the last victim recovered from the Costa Concordia. His body is returned to India, to the family that waited 1,025 days to bury their son. 32 dead. Every body eventually recovered. Unlike most maritime disasters, the sea didn't keep these victims. The families got closure, they got funerals, they got graves to visit, but they didn't get justice. Not yet. The bodies are found, the heroes are honored, the dead are mourned. Now comes the reckoning. The wreck still lies off Giglio's shore, a rusting monument to catastrophe. And the question of what to do with it, how to remove 114,000 tons of twisted steel from a protected marine sanctuary, is about to become the most expensive salvage operation in maritime history. The Costa Concordia lies on her side like a wounded animal. 114,000 tons of steel, glass, and shattered dreams perched on a rocky underwater ledge. Beneath her, the Mediterranean floor drops away to 70 meters. If she slips, she falls into the abyss, and she takes everything with her. This isn't just an engineering problem, it's an environmental time bomb. Inside the wreck sit 2,380 tons of diesel fuel, heavy fuel oil, lubricants, sewage, food waste rotting in flooded kitchens. The Costa Concordia has become a toxic reservoir suspended above a protected marine sanctuary. Giglio Island depends on tourism. Crystal clear waters, pristine coastline. If the ship breaks apart, if the fuel spills, the island's economy dies alongside its ecosystem. The first priority is fuel removal. Dutch salvage company Smit International gets the contract. But extracting fuel from a capsized ship isn't like pumping gas from a car. The tanks are designed for an upright vessel. Many are now sideways or inverted. And there's a critical complication. Removing fuel changes the ship's weight distribution. Drain the wrong tank at the wrong time, and the Concordia shifts. Maybe slides, maybe falls. Smith's engineers develop a technique called hot tapping. They drill into the tanks and pump heated water in at the same rate they pump fuel out. The weight stays constant. The equilibrium holds. It takes 2 months. 17 separate fuel tanks. March 2012. Defueling complete. One crisis averted, but the ship remains, and the ship must go. The options are limited. Cut her apart in place? Too risky. The cutting process could release pollutants, destabilize the structure, send debris across the seafloor. Tow her as is. Impossible. She's grounded, tilted, structurally compromised. She can't be moved until she's upright. And to make her upright, someone has to do something that's never been done before. Parbuckling, an ancient technique for righting capsized vessels. Attach cables to the hull, Pull from the opposite side. Rotate the ship back to vertical. Simple in principle, impossible in practice, at least at this scale. The largest ship ever parbuckled weighed a fraction of the Concordia's mass. Nobody has attempted this with a vessel anywhere close to 114,000 tons, but there's no alternative. The Salvage Consortium forms. Houston-based Titan Salvage brings expertise in impossible recoveries. Italian marine contractor Micoperi brings local knowledge and heavy equipment. South African salvage master Nick Sloan takes command, one of the world's foremost experts in raising ships that shouldn't be raisable. 500 engineers from 24 countries converge on Giglio. The operation will take over 2 years. It will cost more than anyone imagines. First, the platform. Workers construct an artificial seabed beneath the ship, a foundation of steel and cement designed to catch the Concordia when she rotates. The platform must be perfectly positioned. If the ship lands wrong, if she misses the cradle, she could roll off the ledge entirely. Next, the sponsons, giant hollow steel boxes welded to the ship's exposed port side. 15 of them, some rising 10 stories tall, weighing up to 500 tons each. During the rotation, seawater will flood these sponsons, adding weight that helps pull the ship upright. It's controlled capsizing, using gravity as a tool rather than an enemy. Cables loop around the hull. Strand jacks anchor to the sea floor on the uphill side. Computer systems coordinate every element. The margin for error is measured in centimeters. September 16, 2013, 20 months after the disaster. The parbuckling begins. Global media watches live. Cameras on shore, drones in the air, news anchors narrating every creak and groan. If this fails, if the hull cracks, if the cables snap, if the ship slides into deep water, the failure will be witnessed by millions. The rotation starts slowly, millimeters per minute. The hull protests, metal screams against rock, debris falls from the exposed superstructure. Hours pass. The angle changes 10 degrees, 15, 20. At 24 degrees, the critical threshold arrives. Valves open on the sponsons. Seawater floods in. The added weight accelerates the rotation. The Concordia begins to move faster. Momentum building. The massive hull swinging upright like a door on a hinge. 3 a.m., September 17th. The Costa Concordia stands vertical for the first time in 20 months. The starboard side emerges from the water. Cameras capture the devastation. Crushed balconies, shattered windows, mattresses and deck chairs compressed into twisted metal. The point of impact, where Lascole rocks tore through the hull, gapes like an open wound. But she's upright. She's stable. She's sitting on the platform. The parbuckling worked. Now comes phase 2, refloating. Workers attach 15 more sponsons to the starboard side. Air compressors arrive. The plan: pump the sponsons full of compressed air, creating buoyancy to lift the ship off the platform. Raise her deck by deck. Stabilize. Check for structural integrity. Repeat. July 2014. The refloating begins. 10 days of careful inflation. The Concordia rises from her underwater cradle. Chains connect the sponsons beneath the hull, creating a false bottom. She floats, barely, unstably, but she floats. July 23rd, 2014. The convoy forms. 2 tugboats at the bow, with combined 275 tons of pulling power. Auxiliary tugs at the stern. Support vessels surrounding the wreck like escorts for a funeral procession. Average speed, 2 knots. Maximum speed, pray nothing breaks. 4 days later, July 27th, The Costa Concordia enters Genoa harbour. Church bells ring on Giglio as she departs, not in celebration, but in farewell. Good riddance, finally gone. The scrapping takes 3 more years. July 7th, 2017. The last piece of the Concordia is recycled. The ship that cost €450 million to build has been reduced to scrap metal, worth approximately $42 million. The total cost of the disaster, salvage, scrapping, victim compensation, environmental remediation, legal fees, reaches $2 billion, more than 3 times the ship's construction cost. The most expensive maritime salvage operation in history. The rock that killed 32 people is removed from the wreck site, placed near Giglio's harbour entrance, a memorial, a reminder. The ship is gone. The environmental crisis is averted. The bodies have been recovered. The island can heal. But one piece of business remains unfinished. Francesco Schettino still hasn't faced a judge. That's about to change. Grosseto, Italy, July 2013. A theatre has been converted into a courtroom. The case is too large, too public, too symbolic for ordinary facilities. Journalists pack the gallery. Television cameras wait outside. The world is watching. Francesco Schettino enters to face judgment. The charges are severe. Multiple counts of manslaughter, 1 for each of the 32 dead, causing a shipwreck, abandoning ship while passengers remained aboard. If convicted on all counts, he faces 26 years in prison. The maximum penalty Italian law allows for destroying a vessel and killing its occupants. The prosecution's case is devastating. They present the audio recordings, Schettino's own voice damning him, his conversation with Roberto Ferrarini moments after impact, asking what to tell the media, his lies to the Coast Guard about a simple blackout, and the recording that all of Italy has already heard, Gregorio De Falco, ordering him back aboard while he made excuses in the dark. They present the AIS tracking data, the ship's electronic trail showing exactly how far Schettino deviated from the authorized route, not 5 miles from Giglio's coast as safety required. 500 meters, close enough to see the rocks, close enough to hit them. They present the timeline. 73 minutes between impact and the abandoned ship order. 73 minutes of lies, delays, and denial, while water flooded the engine room and the ship listed toward catastrophe. 73 minutes that determined who lived and who died. Lead prosecutor Francesco Verusio doesn't mince words. He calls Schettino a reckless idiot. He argues that the captain's failure to order immediate evacuation is the sole reason 32 people died. Not the rocks, not the ship's design, not the crew's confusion, one man's decisions, one man's cowardice. But Schettino doesn't stand alone in the dock. Not initially. 5 co-defendants face charges alongside him. Roberto Ferrarini, Costa Crociere's crisis coordinator, who downplayed the disaster to authorities and delayed the emergency response. First Officer Ciro Ambrosio, who was on the bridge during impact. Third Officer Silvia Coronica. Helmsman Jacob Ruslibin, who turned the ship the wrong direction in the crucial seconds before collision. Cabin Service Director Manrico Giampedroni, whose chaotic evacuation management contributed to the death toll. One by one, they cut deals. July 2013. The court accepts plea bargains for all 5. Ferrarini receives 2 years and 10 months, the longest sentence, for minimizing the catastrophe and hindering rescue operations. Giampedroni gets 2.5 years. Ambrosio receives 1 year and 11 months. Bin gets 1 year and 8 months for his steering error. Coronica receives 1 year and 6 months. none of them will serve significant prison time. Italian law routinely suspends sentences under 3 years for non-violent first offenders. The people who helped create the disaster walk away with slaps on the wrist. Schettino requests a similar deal, 3 years and 5 months in exchange for admitting responsibility. The court refuses. His request is denied. He will stand trial alone. Costa Concordia makes its position clear. The company accepts limited responsibility for the disaster, pays a €1 million fine, then joins the prosecution as a co-plaintiff against its former captain. The corporation that employed Schettino, that sanctioned the sail-by salutes, that profited from the spectacle he provided, now positions itself as a victim of his recklessness. Schettino is isolated, abandoned by his employer, separated from his co-defendants, left to face the full weight of accountability that others have escaped. His defense team fights back. Lead attorney Domenico Pepe argues that Schettino is a scapegoat. The real failures, he claims, are systemic. The helmsman's error caused the crash, not the captain's route. The ship's watertight doors malfunctioned. The generators failed. The elevators trapped passengers. Costa bears responsibility for inadequate charts, insufficient training, a corporate culture that encouraged dangerous maneuvers for publicity. And there's one more argument. Controversial, counterintuitive, but legally significant. By grounding the ship near shore instead of letting it sink in deep water, Schettino may have saved thousands of lives. If the Concordia had gone down in the open Mediterranean, the death toll could have been catastrophic. His decision to turn toward Giglio, to beach the vessel on that underwater ledge, perhaps that was heroism, not cowardice. The trial lasts 19 months. Witnesses testify. Survivors describe the chaos. Experts debate navigation, ship design, evacuation procedures. And in December 2014, Schettino himself takes the stand. He is combative, defiant. He blames the helmsman for not turning fast enough, blames Costa for inadequate charts, blames the ship for mechanical failures. When asked about abandoning ship, he insists he tripped, fell into the lifeboat by accident, lost his balance as the deck tilted. His explanation for not returning? It was dark. The same excuse he gave De Falco, the excuse that made him a national joke. He offers it again, under oath, as if repetition might make it believable. On the trial's final day, Schettino breaks down in tears. He calls himself a victim, says he's been processed by a media meat grinder, says his head was sacrificed to protect economic interests, says he died alongside the 32 victims that night in January. The judges are unmoved. February 11th, 2015, Judge Giovanni Pugliati delivers the verdict. Guilty on all counts. The sentence, 16 years and 1 month in prison. 10 years for multiple manslaughter, 5 years for causing a shipwreck, 1 year for abandoning passengers in need, plus 1 month for lying to maritime authorities, plus a 5-year ban from commanding any vessel. Prosecutors wanted 26 years. Defense wanted acquittal. The judges split the difference. Schettino isn't present when the verdict is read. He learns his fate from his lawyers. The appeals begin immediately. May 2016, the appeals court upholds the conviction. May 2017, Italy's Supreme Court of Cassation confirms the sentence. No more legal options remain. Francesco Schettino surrenders himself to Rebibbia prison in Rome. He begins serving 16 years for the deaths of 32 people, approximately 6 months per victim. Today, Schettino remains in prison, he has served more than half his sentence. He spends his days digitizing legal documents, including, ironically, files related to the Aldo Moro kidnapping. He has applied for partial parole. A Vatican rehabilitation program has offered him work digitizing historical records if released. The families of the dead are outraged. Giovanni Girolamo, whose son Giuseppe died helping passengers, says Schettino deserves 32 life sentences. Others say he got off easy. That 16 years cannot account for 32 futures erased. The trial answered the legal question, guilty, but it couldn't answer the human one. How does a captain abandon his ship? How does a man trained for duty choose cowardice? How does ego override every instinct, every oath, every obligation? The wreck is gone. The captain is imprisoned. The dead are buried. But the questions remain. And the lessons, those will last forever. Isola del Giglio. Today, the harbour looks the same as it did before January 13th, 2012. Fishing boats bob at the docks. Tourists eat gelato on the waterfront. The Tyrrhenian Sea sparkles under the Mediterranean sun. But if you know where to look, you'll find reminders. A boulder near the harbour entrance, pulled from the Concordia's hull, placed there as a memorial. A plaque bearing 32 names, and in the memories of the island's 1,000 permanent residents, a night that will never fully fade. The Costa Concordia is gone, scrapped down to the last rivet in Genoa. The steel recycled, the furniture incinerated, the evidence of that night scattered across junkyards and processing plants. There's nothing left to visit, nothing physical to touch, but the wreck still speaks, and it has 3 lessons that everyone needs to hear. Lesson 1. Ego kills. Francesco Schettino didn't need to sail within 500 feet of Giglio Island. There was no navigation requirement, no emergency, no reason except vanity. He wanted to show off. He wanted passengers to see the coastline. He wanted to honor a retired commodore, salute a crew member's family, impress his lover standing on the bridge beside him. He had performed this maneuver before, at Capri, at Sorrento, at Giglio itself, just months earlier. Nothing bad happened, and so he believed nothing bad could happen. He trusted his instincts over his instruments, his ego over his training. The rocks didn't care about his confidence. They didn't care about his 30 years of maritime experience. They didn't care that he knew this route well. At 9:45 p.m., physics met hubris. Physics won. 32 people died because one man wanted applause. Lesson 2. The first decision cascades. Schettino's sail-by salute was one decision, but it triggered a cascade of subsequent choices, each one compounding the disaster. Decision to sail too close. Decision to navigate by sight in the dark. Decision to travel at 16 knots, too fast to maneuver safely. Decision to delay the distress signal. Decision to tell passengers it was just a blackout. Decision to lie to the Coast Guard. Decision to delay the abandoned ship order for 73 minutes. Decision to leave the bridge. Decision to get into a lifeboat. Decision to refuse De Falco's order to return. None of these decisions alone killed 32 people. All of them together did. The official investigation found that when the ship struck the rocks, there was still time. Time to issue a mayday immediately. Time to start evacuation while the ship was stable. Time to launch all lifeboats before the list became severe. If Schettino had made different choices in the first 15 minutes, many experts believe no one would have died. Instead, he made the worst possible choice at every junction. He prioritized his reputation over passenger safety. He chose denial over action. And by the time he finally ordered evacuation, it was too late to save everyone. One decision leads to another. The cascade builds momentum. By the end, you're no longer in control. You're just riding the consequences of your first mistake all the way down. Lesson 3. Character is revealed in crisis. On the night of January 13th, 2012, the Costa Concordia became a crucible. And in that crucible, character showed itself. Russell Rebello, the Indian waiter, gave his life jacket to a stranger, stayed aboard to lower lifeboats, died saving passengers he'd never met. His body wasn't recovered for nearly 3 years. He never hesitated. Francis Servel, the French passenger, gave his life jacket to his wife because she couldn't swim, jumped into the freezing sea without one, was sucked under by the capsizing ship. His last act was love. Petar Petrov, Bulgarian ship technician, made 6 lifeboat trips, saved over 500 people. Was among the last 3 crew members to leave. Deputy Mayor Mario Pellegrini of Giglio, Father Raffaele Malena, the ship's priest, young officer Simone Canessa, ordinary people who became extraordinary when it mattered, and Francesco Schettino. He left, while 300 passengers remained trapped, while people drowned in flooding corridors, while children cried in the darkness. He left. "It's dark," he told DeFalco. "We can't see anything." "What do you want to do? Go home," DeFalco shot back. Character isn't what you claim to be. It isn't your title or your uniform or your years of experience. Character is what you do when no one would blame you for running, when the lights go out, when the ship is sinking, when everyone is screaming and there's a lifeboat with empty seats. In that moment, you find out who you actually are. Russell Rebello found out he was a hero. Francesco Schettino found out he was a coward. The aftermath continues. The cruise industry changed after the Concordia. Muster drills now happen before departure, not after. Safety briefings are mandatory. The 32 deaths produced new protocols that may save thousands in future emergencies. Costa Concordia was the first of her class. Her sister ships, Costa Serena, Costa Pacifica, Costa Favolosa, still sail today. Millions of passengers have cruised aboard them without incident. The lesson wasn't that cruise ships are unsafe. The lesson was that safety depends on the judgment of the captain in command. Francesco Schettino sits in Rebibbia prison in Rome. He has served over half his 16-year sentence. He maintains he is not a coward, that he saved lives by grounding the ship near shore, that he has been scapegoated for systemic failures. He has written a book. He has given lectures on panic management. He has applied for parole. The families of the 32 dead have a different view. Giovanni Girolamo, father of Giuseppe the musician, said Schettino should serve 32 life sentences. Georgia Ananias, a survivor who has spent years fighting for cruise ship safety reform, said, "People need to be aware that when you go on a cruise, if there is a problem, you will not have the justice you may be used to." The memorial on Giglio. On January 13th each year, Giglio holds a commemoration, a mass at the church of Saints Lorenzo and Mamiliano, a flower-laying ceremony into the sea, a candlelit procession on the pier, sirens and church bells at 9:45 p.m., the moment of impact. 32 lanterns released into the sky, one for each life lost. The Costa Concordia was supposed to mean harmony, unity, peace. Instead, her name now means disaster, cowardice, and preventable death. A captain who abandoned his passengers, a company that paid €1 million fine and moved on, a trial that sent one man to prison while systemic failures went unaddressed. The rocks that tore through the Concordia's hull are still there, beneath the surface off Giglio's eastern shore. The seafloor has been cleaned, the underwater platform removed, the environment has healed. But 32 families have not healed, and they never will. Welcome inside the wreck of the Costa Concordia, where a captain's ego met an immovable rock, where 32 people paid for one man's vanity with their lives, where the line between hero and coward was drawn in a single question. Will you get back on board? Schettino said no, and that answer will follow him forever. If this story made you think about leadership, about ego, about what you would do when the lights go out, then subscribe. Because the next story we tell might be even darker, and you won't want to miss it.